Welcome to Her New Lens, the podcast that invites you to shift your perspective, because when you change the lens through which you see your life, everything begins to change. I'm Tricia Rose Stone, a Wayfinder life coach and former optometrist. For over 20 years, I help people see clearly through actual lenses. Today, I help women discover the lens through which they can see their ultimate life and guide them to making it a reality. On the show, we'll explore the science of transformation, the wisdom of spirituality, along with lessons I've learned along the way, as well as words of wisdom from many thought leaders, all here to help guide you in the direction of your highest possibilities. Before we dive in, I want to share why I created this podcast and why this work matters to me. On a personal note, back to being an optometrist, it's hard to even describe the feeling of having a child, an 8-year-old, come in and figuring out their prescription and then putting their glasses on them when they pick them up and having them go outside and be so moved because they look at a tree for the first time and they say that what they used to see was a green blob. But with these lenses on, they can see all the individual leaves. And to know that you can help people to see clearly, even in that way, is so incredibly rewarding. Along the way, I also learned that there are lenses that are internal. It's an internal lens, is what I think of it, where it's a filter through which we see everything in our lives. And there's so many different examples we'll be exploring on this podcast. But it's the idea of seeing and what seeing really means more than just the optical vision of 2020. It's how do you actually see things? How do you actually see this day? How do you see your history? How do you see your relationships? How do you see your career? How do you see yourself? What are you seeing? And there's just endless ways to work with this concept. One of the quotes that really set me on this path, though, is by Anais Nin. And I came across this quote a long time ago. I was scrolling on Instagram and it popped up and it just kind of stopped me in my tracks. But the quote is, "We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are." So I saw that quote and I took a screenshot and saved it. And then fast forward to last year, I was at the Boston Athenaeum, which is this beautiful library / museum. And we're talking thousands and thousands of books. And I sit at this table and literally staring at me is this book. And I looked at it, it's Anais Nin. And once again, I see the quote, "We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are." So it just really stuck with me. And I realized there's so much to gain and learn from this idea that if we see things as we are, then we have the power and the ability to change the way we see everything. And that starts by first recognizing that we actually do have a filter and a lens that we're looking through and working through different methods and processes to adapt that lens so that's more aligned with what we really want and who we truly are. So we're going to be digging into this a lot during this podcast. That lens that we look through has a direct impact on the way we view ourselves, our self-worth, our relationships, everything. I want to stop before we continue and just ask you, what are the lenses you've been wearing and how are they shaping your decisions in terms of your self-worth, your relationships, your choices on a Friday night, the way you think about how you're going to spend the rest of this summer? How are those lenses influencing you? So I'm just putting a little question there for you to think about as we proceed through the show today. Now I want to get even deeper into this metaphor of this lens, because the way we see our life truly shapes the life we experience. So one example I'm going to give is something we look at all the time. So let's talk about a sunset. Imagine that you're in a beautiful location and you're watching a sunset. And as you are watching it, and what you see is not just what the sunset is. The sunset is over there, it's happening. But what you see is all through the filters of memories. You might be feeling a sense of longing, like you wish you had someone to share that sunset with. You might feel flooded with happiness because you're so present in that moment. You might feel nostalgic for someone who you've shared that kind of view with before. So it's entirely unique the way you are viewing that sunset. No one else is seeing the same thing. And if I had 10 women sitting next to me and we're sitting watching a sunset, we are seeing 10 different sunsets. So that's kind of a basic example, but it just shows how impactful your lenses are that you are looking through, and also how unique they are, and how what you see is often what's reflected back to you, which we're going to be, again, diving into a lot in this podcast. Another idea that I want to say about the lenses that we look through is a little bit more scientific, but I've heard Deepak Chopra talk about this and I've seen it well documented online. It's the idea that when we're born, we go through a process called imprinting. And what imprinting is that a child between age 0 and 7 is imprinted by the caregivers in that child's life. Could be parents, could be grandparents, even babysitters, nannies, teachers, daycare, whoever's caring for the child. But primary caregivers have the largest imprint, but basically they're imprinting their views and their experiences on that child without even realizing it. Imagine the visual of a little child that's 7 years old sitting in a chair and having a pair of glasses kind of forced on them to see everything through. And for the rest of time, that child is looking through those lenses unless they're able to, at some point, stop and think about it and wonder, am I seeing this in the healthiest way? Am I biased by experiences that my parents had? And the great news is that we know we have the ability now to change the lens. So the lens that you were forced to put on when you were 7, that is no longer true. Now you can actually modify the lenses through various techniques. I will be sharing those on this podcast, but a lot of them are basic, like thought work. I'm working on beliefs and how deep are the beliefs and how can we modify those? How can we change those so they're more aligned with the truth? So who you were when you were newborn is one way. And then by the age of 7, you are influenced heavily by the life you had during those years. And great news is we can change that. So that's the kind of work we're going to be doing. And it's actually there's a fun feeling to it too, because it can happen very quickly. Changing the lens can happen very quickly. And you can see very big impact. So that's exciting. I want to get back to now coaching. So I mentioned earlier that I was an optometrist, now I'm a coach. And in my coaching practice, I work with women, helping them shift their perspective when it comes to relationships. So most of my clients right now are women who are seeking a relationship. And a common question I hear is, why do I keep attracting the wrong partner? And the truth is, it's not about the partner. It's about the lens that you're using to see yourself. So it's the lens that women are using to see themselves, because what we see inside and what we truly believe about ourselves is what is reflected back to us. So that work is more about turning the lens inward instead of looking out at all these characteristics of all these men that they want to meet. It's turning the lens inward and saying, do I see myself as totally, completely worthy of what I know I really want? Am I in alignment with that vision I have for myself? And if I'm not, how can I change the way I see myself? And those are the techniques that we work on in coaching so that you can chip away at the layers of the lens that you wear that are really not serving you because they're blocking the truth from coming in. The truth is what you see for yourself already exists on some level. So what you actually dream of and believe, it's out there for you. Your dream and your vision isn't a mistake. It is perfectly aligned with you and what you actually want. Now the challenge is working with that lens and cleaning it up and getting really clear and removing the layers that don't belong. And so you're left with this incredibly magnetic energy, and that just attracts that person, that circumstance very quickly. So that is practically how we use this tool in coaching. I'd love to share a little bit about my personal journey so that you get to know a little bit more about me today. I went through an extremely painful divorce at age 30. I had a 6-month old and left Canada, where I was living, and moved back to upstate New York with my family, with my little 6-month old to start over. And it was extremely painful. I went through 14 years of being single, basically. I dated here and there, but nothing really substantial. And the way I feel about the lens I was using is that going back to who I was in my 20s, if I was really being honest with myself, looking back now, I couldn't see myself in a wonderful relationship. There was something off within me. It was, I couldn't imagine really how it would feel to have a wonderful partner. I couldn't imagine any of it. So, in a way, it's not a total shock that it didn't happen because I think on some level you have to see things before they can happen. And you know what they say, seeing is believing. You have to see it. And there was a part of me that had doubts. And those doubts were really inside of me. Um, there are doubts about what I deserved. There were doubts about what was possible for me. And when the divorce happened, I went through extensive therapy over the years, all different kinds of therapy. At the very last chapter before I met my husband, I was doing more of a coaching type of method. And the reason I say that is there was a lot of accountability, a lot of daily work, and I was getting really deep into my beliefs and my thoughts. After practicing this discipline, I would say I was working on it for maybe 4 months. All of a sudden, one day, it clicked, and I actually knew I deserved what I wanted. And I could see it. I could see it, and I could actually envision it happening. It was so clear to me. It was like just beyond the veil. Like I could just see it, and I knew something great was going to happen. And it was the sense of worthiness I felt inside, I think that really was the difference between, the sense of worthiness I had about myself that came through this process of working and coaching and techniques, that it just clicked. And when I felt that and I could see it, I attracted it within a month. It was very fast. So this work can happen quickly. Once the connection occurs and what I felt I wanted inside matched the way I saw myself, and I could actually see myself getting what I wanted, it was super quick. So I just wanted to share that. And I noticed that if I could see it first within myself, then I could actually see it in my life. So I want to make this practical for a minute. We're going to do a little bit of coaching every podcast. We'll be doing a few things just to get you thinking, get the ball rolling a little bit. So I want to practice with this idea and ask you, what area of your life would you like to see a change? So I want you to just get really clear for a minute about the area that you want something to happen. Now that you have that, I want to ask you, what is one belief about yourself that's in your lens that you are ready to release? It might be something you inherited, but just take a look at the way you've been seeing things, how you're navigating, and identify that one belief or what I would consider a layer of that lens that is not serving you at all. And now I want you to imagine how your life would be if that layer was no longer there and something else replaced it. And the replacement layer would be a lens of possibility. It could be a lens of kindness. It could be a lens of destiny. It could be a lens of happiness. I don't know what you want, but if you could see your life instead through a different lens, what would you choose to put in your lens, taking away that issue that is in some way maybe blocking you from getting what you really want? So just thinking about it may open up some ideas for you just to think about this week. And you can journal. Journaling will be really effective if you want to follow along with me. Journal today, those two things. What lens did you inherit? And what are you willing to try on for size this week and see if things are a little bit different for you day to day? So before we wrap up, let's pull together the key ideas from today. The first one is new changes begin with a new lens. You don't have to wait. It can happen very fast. Another thing that we take away from today is that perception shapes reality and that small shifts can create big changes. So, what do you think? Now that we've explored how shifting our perspective can transform our relationships to others and to ourselves, I want to talk about the power of visualization in next week's episode. We're going to dive deep into how you can actually start to visualize this higher version of yourself and how she navigates things. And we're going to start playing with this idea. We're going to start experimenting with this and get to know this version of yourself that has what you want. And we're going to be checking out the way she sees things and how she navigates through the world. And is there anything that she can tell you and share with you now that'll help you to close the gap between where you are today and where she is today? It's going to be a very powerful episode, and I can't wait to share the tools that have helped me and my clients transform their lives. I want to close with another quote that is so important to me, and it's by Wayne Dyer. And I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I just love Wayne Dyer. The quote that's most associated and linked to him is, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So we have the power to change everything by influencing the way we see things. Thank you for joining me on this first episode of Her New Lens. I hope you feel inspired to notice the lens you're looking through and experiment with a new one this week. Remember, the future version of you is already waiting. You just need to see the world the way she does. Subscribe, leave a review, or contact me for a free clarity call if you want to go deeper. Until next time, keep looking through the lens that empowers you most. I'll see you next week. Bye.